Morning. My name is Ishan Rolle, and I'm here with sweet Emily. She's former queen of Junkanoo, now queen of haircutting and evangelist. Sweet Emily, what inspired you to sing or perform?
You mean initially?
Initially, yes. What initially?
Why for me it was something like, sometimes you just learn into situations.
Yes, ma'am.
I just happened to be a part of a group called the Chic Productions back in 1985 when I graduated high school. And began as a talent show that we put on our last year at school was turned into a production company by a lady by the name of Maltese. And from there we started traveling, and we started like meeting at clubs and doing shows, Bahamian type shows. And so at that point I wasn't Sweet Emily's yet, but that's how I got my start. And then eventually I started singing with bands, and about 10 years later, 1995, I started recording my first album. That's how I came into as from a person just singing in a band as a singer, as a recording artist. So for me, I was always inspired by, what inspired me was just the love that people had and the appreciation they had for the music that I sang, which wasn't even originally my music back then, but I seem to have had that type of effect on people, and so that inspired me to continue to go on.
So would you consider yourself one of the pioneers of Bahamian music?
Yeah, and I say that not because I'm not one of the oldest, or not one of the persons who started out doing Bahamian music, because I came in, I'm a second generation Bahamian. So when you talk about people like Ronnie Butler and Priscilla Rollins, these are the first generation Bahamians. Joseph Spence and these other people who was before me. These to me would be the pioneers, but the difference is, being a female, there wasn't much females back then doing that type of stuff. And then there was a gap. It was like about a 20-year gap between people like Priscilla and myself. And so I think I would be, I guess you can consider me a premier for the younger generation. Yeah, I would think so.
So do you believe that you set a standard, now that you've converted from the, I guess, secular aspect to the gospel, so do you believe that you set a standard for, I guess, Bahamian females to follow?
I think I have, because I was the first female, like I said, Regina Gap. I was the first Bahamian female actually recording. There were other females singing, but I was the first female Bahamian artist actually recording Bahamian music, which would be considered somewhere between the Wicked Scrape, the Junkanoo, and what they call Gombe, But yeah, I think I set a standard that today others are following. People like Therese, who already passed on, she continued that when she came after me. She started recording after me, but she was actually singing before me. Okay, but then you have people like Nita and Spice and all these other females now that are still keeping, I guess, the culture of music alive. I would say I was the first female, so everybody else basically who's doing it now came after me. So I would think so. Mm-hmm.
So you did make a great impact.
I think so.
On the music industry.
Yes, I think I did.
And what caused you to convert from secular to gospel?
Well, you go through your mind stress, and and you go through, you have your children and you're married, and you go through different things in life. And I am no different from any other female. I just happen to be a more famous person. More people may know me. I have a name that people they recognize, but I'm just a regular female like everybody else. So I go through my stress too. But I always had a desire in my heart to, I would say even as a child, even before I was into the secular music, I always knew that there was something different about me, and I always knew that that somewhere in life I gotta do something that's great. I just always felt like I have to do something great, and I didn't know how that was gonna play out. And as a secular artist, I think I started from the bottom, just like everybody else. I started in bands, singing where, you go through all the processes of not being paid. You go through the processes of, being hurt, your feelings getting hurt. Sometimes because of the jealousy and the envy, you go through all of that. But at some time, I ended up on top as a female, and somewhere along the line, I knew that at some point I had to make the transition, because there was something inside of me that I felt there was always more. I always felt that the gift that I had, I could do more with it than just singing rake and scrape or singing jungle music, making people happy. And of course, I feel like now that I understand what it is, I didn't understand then that as human beings, we are more than just human, you know, we are actually spirits. And so when I begin to understand how God made us, I could say now that the spiritual part of me, the part of me that is the real Emily, that you can't see physically, was desiring to do something greater and to impact people in a different way from a spiritual aspect versus just the physical, which is more flesh, which is more just making people shake, making people happy, and you know, making people feel good. That's the flesh part of us, but that is actually controlled by the physical part of us. But there's, I think, a deeper side to it where we are not really physical beings. We live in a body, but we're actually spirits. And so I felt like there was a higher calling on my life to do that. And so I just decided one day that I can give that a shot, and that's it. You know, I'm not going back to secular because I felt even as a secular artist, I think I reached the top. As far as in this country, I mean, I don't think I can go any further because I was the top paid artist. Ronnie Butler and myself, we were the two top paid, and then that is based on the jobs that you would get. Some people may say, well, how could she come to that conclusion? I can't, because I know that when it comes to other artists, people would generally compare other artists with me. They would say, well, we pay Emily $2,500 an hour, but we can't pay you that because we don't consider you on the same level. So I say that not in a, I say that in a humble way, but at the same time, based on that's how you judge how you are as an artist. You judge where you are based on how much you make and the impact that you have on people and the type of jobs that you get. And I used to get I would say some of the better jobs, and some of the companies that would hire me, they wouldn't necessarily hire somebody without a name. You know what I'm saying? So based on that, I think I'd reached the point in this country where the only other way to go would have been international. And somehow God just didn't allow me to go that far in the secular.
So with your conversion to gospel music, do you record gospel music?
I do. I have 2 gospel albums that hardly get any play, but I do have them. They're out there.
Okay, so with you recording gospel and all and making your conversion like you asked, do you feel as if that you accomplished, I mean, all of your goals?
Not really.
Not really.
Not really, because first of all, like I said, it's such a difference with the secular and the gospel because first of all, when you're in the secular, you can demand money. But we know how church people go. When you're in the church, they feel like you just got to sing for free. So there's a huge difference as far as the finances is concerned. And plus, when you're in the church and you're doing, it's not really considered, you're not really an entertainer in the church. You're more like you're ministering.
Yeah.
So I think it's wrong to put a price on the gift that God has given you when it comes to trying to reach people from a spiritual aspect. Like I have a problem with people charging people to preach. I think there should be, I think there is a difference. But I can truly say though, based on the question that you asked me, that there is a difference, and I think that I don't think I've reached the point where I want to reach yet in the secular, in the gospel, simply because number one, my music is not being played as much as it should. But at the same time, I feel like the music I'm doing now is actually what God has given me. I don't know what I was going to do. I don't know if I was going to do gospel, rake and scrape. I don't know if it was going to be jungle. I didn't know what he was going to give me. Then he gave me reggae. He said, because this is what the younger people into the hip-hop and the reggae. Because we know that if you want to be an international artist, the rake and scrape and the jungle music has not reached that far in the world as yet. And I believe that there are some places that God will send me that I haven't gone to yet. Because my music even hasn't taken off in the gospel as yet. You know what I'm saying? So I think that there is a lot of work that I have to do. I think I'll be recording more music. I don't know if I'll ever get to the point to do rake and scrape. It's based on what God has called me to do, because I feel as if I was doing rake and scrape and jungle, it would mean that my ministry would only be here in the Bahamas. But I think my ministry is beyond that. So looking back now, I can truly say that maybe God only allowed me to get so far in this market, keeping it secular, but now with the gospel, I think it'll be more international.
Okay. Well, seeing that you said that you intend on taking your music, well, gospel music to higher heights. Well, jump back to the secular aspect. With the Bahamian music that's being produced nowadays, do you feel as if that it's fully Bahamian, or Is it a mixture, more Americanized, or?
Boy, to be honest with you, what is Bahamian music? We still ain't really decided yet what Bahamian music is, simply because I remember I'll try to answer that like this. I remember I was one of the persons that was chosen back in 2003 to go to a Cara festival, which is normally celebrated throughout the Caribbean and most Caribbean countries. The Bahamas is not even really considered Caribbean because we're more closer to America, but we're not a part of that. We're not in the Gulf. But we still do consider ourselves Caribbean. And what I found is that being at the Cara Festival, along with other Bahamian artists, and just, it's not a competition as such, it's show hosting what the kind of music that your country does. And if you listen to music apart from reggae, if you listen to soca, and you listen to the music like from places like Peru and Central America, which are all considered Caribbean, because they're part of the Gulf, and Haiti, and countries like Venezuela and all these different countries, Cuba and all these different places, when you listen to the beat and you listen to the music, it's so close, it's so similar, which proves that most of the people in the Caribbean has that influence and had come. It's something in us that we all have something in common, and it may not necessarily be called Jonkunu, but I think that beating of the drum, they all do it. Some people just do it. I think the Jonkunu beat is faster. Our beat is the fastest. But when you slow it down, it sounds just like when they beaten in Trinidad. It's the same thing, they beat drums, most of the Caribbean islands. And so I think because we all basically descended from Africa, there's a similarity. So it's kind of difficult to say what Bahamian music is, because like unlike Trinidad and Barbados and all that, they found a way to harness a particular type of music that they call theirs, even though most of the Caribbean music is similar. So I think our biggest issue is we have not decided yet what Bahamian music is, but in my estimation, I think we can safely say that rake and scrape to me is more indigenous, because you're dealing with, it's not necessarily gold skin drums. You have a little drum thing going on, but it's mostly the saw, the harmonica, which isn't even really Bahamian, but the mixture and the fusion of the harmonica mixed with the rake, the saw, and then you got the little thing on it with the little instruments that we use. I think rake and scrape would be the the accordion and all. I think the rake and scrape music, something like what Phil Stamp does, KB does some of it, some of the gospel artists does it as well, and even some of the other secular artists, they find a way to do it. So with Jonkunu, I think Jonkunu is more, it ties more to the festival that we have, okay? But I think when you're talking about trying to find something that can be labeled Bahamian music, I think the closest thing is rake and scrape. Now, as far as the artists and what they're doing now, I think you have some artists out there like D-Mark and others who does have that down pack. But I think most of my concern is me and D-Mark and KB and all of us, we from that generation. I don't see most of the younger people gravitating toward that, which can cause us to question, are we going to continue to keep that culture alive? You know, is Bahamian music dying out? That's another question. Or is it Bahamian music? But I think it is safe to say that I think we can say that Jonkunu is Bahamian, or we can say that rake and scrape is more indigenous Bahamian, but I think we have an idea as to what it is, but we haven't labeled it yet.
Well, Aaron, your answer to my question. Another question that I must ask, and always ask, do you think that we as a nation are losing our culture?
No, I don't think so. I say that because I think what we look at as culture is music. But culture isn't just rake and scrape and jungle. No, culture is who we are. You can never lose who you are. Because Bahamian's still going to say, hey, Tingham, bring the Tingham over here. And we have certain, I think culture has to do with how we worship. Even when we go to church, you know, we're religious. We live like the devil the whole week, but when we're in church, we still somehow seem to be able to pretend like we so godly. That's culture. How we are, you know, my boy. You know, that's culture. Culture is also how we cook. You know, the fact that the Bahamians are some of the more obese people in the Caribbean. That's culture. I'm saying it isn't always good. Is culture always good? Not necessarily, but that's who we are. And so I think what we have to first of all understand is culture is not just music. You know what I'm saying? So when people, based on what I said before, as far as we're not getting the young people interested in it, and I think they're not interested in it because it has not been promoted enough in the past. I think young people appreciate reggae sweep, they love it. But they're not doing it because they don't feel like number one, there's any money in it. They don't see a way of going international with it. And so to them, it's useless. But I think as far as culture, I don't think we can ever lose culture. Now I would say, I think you have more foreigners in our country now than Bahamians. So definitely we can eventually, some of the culture is going to be lost, and actually we are now cross-cultured. Because we have the Haitians here, we have the Panamanians here, we got the what you call them? The people from the Philippines, we got the Cubans here, we got the Jamaicans here, we got even the Russians, the Chinese taking over wherever they go. We got the different people and they're fusing in with the Bahamians. So I think in another 20 years, it's going to be hard to find an indigenous Bahamian. So I think in a way you can safely say that somehow we're going to lose some of our culture.
Are there any suggestions that I guess you formulated too? I guess to enhance, or enhance Bahamian culture, or to just make it properly promote it?
Yeah, I think it starts with the individuals. I don't think the government, like a lot of people say, the government need to do this, the government need to do that. I think as Bahamians, like here in my store, I did here for years, but I didn't see the potential, because I wasn't there mentally at the time, okay? And so I believe what we need to do is, because time is so short and it seems like we more heading to the edge of time where you may not have as long to figure some things out as I had. Some of the mistakes that I made, you may not have time to do and to understand. And then we see we losing a lot of our young men because of violence and crime. And so I think the crime and the violence and all the hate and the selfishness and all the things that contribute to the society being the way it is, I think somehow culture helps people to keep things in right perspective. But at the same time, I think we've lost the God side of us. I think we have lost touch with who we are as far as why God has placed us here on the earth, which every nation, I guess, you can say the same thing is happening. But as far as culture and enhancing, I could say that I think we can still save some of our young people. You're not going to save everybody because ain't everybody can do what is right. That's just reality. You can still have some young men who feel like they need a gun. You can still have some young people who feel like, that because of the social and the spiritual issues, we find that we have a very angry generation. And I think that is because of the family breakdown. And so I think in order for us to fix it somehow, we'll never be back to where we used to be. That ain't gonna happen. So it wouldn't be right for me to lie and say, I don't think we'll ever get back. The world has even changed. But I think we can, as a small country though, we can still try to be one of those nations in the world where, because we said small, we could control some of the things that are happening. You can't necessarily fix everything, but we can have to control it by, I think, trying to work with the younger people. Most of the old people ain't gonna change. And they are part of the problem. Because they can't see the good in the younger people. And if all the old people are gonna say, oh, these young people ain't no good, then half of the older people ain't no good either. You see what I'm saying? And so I think that, for me, I try to enhance the country. I try to make my contribution by ministry, the young people that God has placed in my path. I can't reach all the young people, but the people who I can reach with my music, or through my business, or through whatever means, I try to encourage them and let them know that, hey, even though you're young, try to, put yourself in a position in life where you don't want to be working for somebody for the rest of your life. I think education is important, but education, you still need to have a balance, because a person can be an educated fool. Okay? So I think that one of the things that we're losing with our young people that is going to cause us a serious problem in the future is the fact that our young people don't know who they are. And I think it's going to take people like us, whether it's through our music, if you're writing music, instead of writing about a bunch of shaking and whining, we done got that part down. Let's write about more positive things about the country. Let's write more positive music as far as, looking within inside yourself and focusing on who you really are, and write about more positive things that are happening. And let's talk more about the environment and the country as a whole, and sports and all these different things. I think all of them have to make young people feel a part of the environment in which, the country in which they're a part of. So I think there's so many things that we can do, but I can only do so much. And I try to do it through my music. If I write music, I try to write music that, number one, has the Word of God in it, because I think that it's only the Word of God that can truly deliver people and set them free. Okay? I could sing about my testimony all day, but I don't have the power in myself to save somebody. I think only God can do that. And so I try to do that through my music by putting the word of God in the music so that people can be encouraged through the word of God.
Okay, well, like as I said, when I walked through the door, I